Okay. Hahir Rechova, the Hava Bepum Nahare. There was this Rechova, which is a yard, backyard, or whatever. It's a yard, which is not used Ladira. It's not used for living. It's just an empty space, and so on. The Hava Befum Nara. It was in a place called Fum Nara. It's like in English we would translate it probably as river mouth. The name of that city was the river mouth, probably the mouth of the river. Anyway, so this Rechava, the Chadgisa have a posich lemasa. One side of this Rechava, of this courtyard, which had nobody was living there. It was an empty courtyard, and it was so the one end of this courtyard was open to the city, which means it opened to a street in the city, which in other words we'll call a mavui. So there's a street in the city, and that street in the city leads to this courtyard, which is a fenced-off courtyard. But the street is totally open. In other words, the street, there's no fence between the street and the courtyard. Although the courtyard is wider area than the street. So the street is a narrow entrance, let's say 8 amas, 9 amas, the entrance of the street, let's say. And then the courtyard maybe is to 20 amas by 20 amas, or 50 amas by 50 amas, much larger. And except for where the street is open to the courtyard, the rest of the courtyard, except another street, there's another street at the other end. There's going to be there's 2 streets at both ends, but first of all, the street, which is the city, a regular mavui. So that is so that the mavui is open to the courtyard, but the rest of the courtyard is fenced up. This street is one end of the street leads to the courtyard, and the other end of the street leads to Reshus Harabim. So presumably at the Reshus Harabim, you have a mavui, which is a mavui mefulish. It has 2 ends. It's a mavui mefulish. It has 2 ends. So you have to make when you have a mavui mefulish, which has 2 ends, you have to make one side the Tzuras HaPesach and the other side the Lech. So okay, so the Tzuras HaPesach is where the mavui meets the street. So when the mavui meets the street, that's they made the Tzuras HaPesach. Fine, let's forget about that in a moment. So this mavui now leads into this courtyard. Now, at the opposite end of where the mavui leads to the courtyard, there's another sort of road leading out of the courtyard. But that road is not a regular mavui where you have houses, chatzeres, and they're off the street. The chadgis, the other end of the opposite end of the mavui. So the other entrance, the opposite entrance to this courtyard is habasuach l'shvil shel kromim. So it was a path by vineyards. So you have vineyards over there, and then there's a road within in the vineyards. Now those vineyards actually, so that road was also actually fenced. So this shvil, this road in the which was going through the vineyards, was also fenced. And you actually, in the vineyards, there was part of the area there was residential as well. So it's vineyards. But in that vineyards, you had a few houses as residential, and therefore, yeah, the road there was also fenced off. So you have that road which is fenced off, which is a lot of vineyards and a few residential parts, but this road has fences on both sides. But ushvil shel kromim, but this road between the vineyards is have a solid leguda denara. So it went all the way to the river edge. There was a river over there, and that road went all the way to the river. It led up to the river. Okay. So just let me go over the scenario again. So basically, you have let's start off with a city. You have a city there, and right, and then you have this Movoi Hamfulish. So you have this Movoi Hamfulish, this road, which is open at both ends. One end leads to Rosh Hashanah, and they made a Tzuras HaPesach over there, so they should be able to carry. And the other end leads to this courtyard, which nobody lives there. But this courtyard is fenced off, and like I said before, that the width of the street is, let's say, 8 amas, 9 amas. Let's have it below 10. Yeah. So it's below 10 amas. But the courtyard is a nice large area, 20 or 40 amas by 40 amas. Right. Now, at the opposite end of this, where the street enters the courtyard, you have the exit. By the exit, you have a path which will go to the river, and that road which will go to the river also is a narrowish road. It's not so wide, also less than 10 amas, and that is actually a road between the vineyards, but it's residential as well. That part, and yeah, and it's fenced off, and you go all the way to, and that road goes all the way till it hits the river. Now, we must understand the river actually is also a mechitza, because the river is deep 10 tefachim, so therefore the river actually also counts as a mechitza. Fine. So now, what is the issue over here? The issue over here is that we have the klal that if you have a large area, did I say the rechava is 40 amas by 40 amas? No, it would have to be bigger. Sorry, I said it's too small. I made the rechava too small. It's larger. The rechava is a large area. Let's say it's more than 70 by 70. Right? I didn't think about it. This rechava is more than 70 by 70, which means it's more than Beis Hasayim. So the rechava is a place. It has mechitz. It's very nice, except where the two roads go into it, where those roads are totally there's no fencing at all between the road and the courtyard. But this courtyard, which is more than let's say 100 amas by 100 amas, so it's 100 amas, 100 amas. So if you're standing in the courtyard, you will actually see mechitzas on all four sides, because you have the two sides where there's no roads going through, and even the entrance and the exit where the roads go meet. Still, there's partial mechitzas, except that there is a gap between. If you're standing in the courtyard, you see the mechitzas also on those sides, except there's a gap where that road is. There's no mechitza to separate between the road and the courtyard, but on the sides of it, the shoulders, how to call it, that there is mechitzas. Yeah. So the chava is fine. The chava is fenced up on all sides, but well, except for the entrances. That's fine. But the problem is, it's not hukaf l'dira. It's more than Beis Hasayim. It's more than the Beis Hasayim, and it's not hukaf l'dira. So therefore, midrabanon, you're not allowed to carry. Midiraisa, it's a shusa yochid. Midrabanon, you're not allowed to carry that because it has a din of a carmelis. Right. Now, because this courtyard, which is 100 by 100, I stress, sorry for making it smaller before, because this courtyard is more than Beis Hasayim, and there is no fence whatsoever between the movoi and the rechava, so or from the shvil for that matter till the rechava. So even though the shvil akromim also has fences on three sides, it has fences on three sides. One side is a river, and the other two sides are the dwelling places. They made the fence over there on the road, to fence themselves off. So therefore, you cannot carry those places because they are open. They are open to a carmelis. So if it's open to carmelis, you can't. And why is this a carmelis? Why is it a carmelis? Even though it has fences with gaps, the entrances are less than 10 amas. So it's fenced on all four sides. Yes, there's an entrance to the road and to the shvil shel kromim, but they're less than 10 amas, which would be fine But the thing is, it's not hookup for dira, so it's not hookup for dira, so it's not a shusyoch, it's a karmelis, and therefore you cannot carry even in the mavui and even the shul shekramim, certainly not in the rechava itself. So you can't carry in all these three areas. One cannot carry. So what can you do that you should be able to carry in those places? Okay. What should we do? Now we're going to go through the few possibilities and give the reasoning of why the possibilities should be effective and then why they should not be effective. So what we're going to do now, we're going to go through the few proposals and say why these proposals are effective and then why they're rejected and until we'll come to the end of this. Okay. So I'm going to buy Hechenevet. What should we do? Levet le mechitza aguda denara. You know what? Let's make a mechitza by the river edge. Okay, let's build a mechitza at the river edge. Now, what do you do when you build a mechitza by the river edge? So once you make a mechitza by the river edge, before I go anywhere, what's the problem with this square, with this courtyard? The problem with this courtyard is that it was not fenced off Ladira. It's not hookah for Ladira. So we have a solution. You know what? Listen, the shvil, the people from the shvil shekramim want to use this for different things, and then also from the people from the Mobi want to use this. It's very convenient. You know what? Break off a piece of the fence. This is something which we had before. Break off a piece of the fence of this courtyard, more than 10 amas, and then fix it back up and make it a new one. And so we had that solution before. That if you break off a piece of the wall more than 10 amas, so the mechitzas become invalid, and then later you make new mechitzas. So now that makes it's hookah for dira. So the new mechitzas, before you make the new mechitzas, you decide that it is for residential use. And when you decide it's for residential use, so then it'll be hookah for dira. So why not break part of the wall down and just make a new piece of fence, and then it's hookah for dira, and then you have this whole area is fenced off from the Mavoi from the beginning of the Mavoi till the river. You have walls on all three sides, one long stretch of walls. Okay, it's a bit of it goes in and out a bit the walls, but they have walls on all four sides, the river being one, and then you have a Tzuras HaPesach by the Rishus HaRabim. Amazing, you can carry the whole area. Just make the Shittuf Mevoris, make the Eruv and all that, and you're fine. So Rashi explains that the reason why I didn't do it is because the walls, we're talking about a practical situation, not talking about the theoretical thing. But practical situation, they had stone walls, it was just too much to make that, to break down the walls and to rebuild it. It was just not practical. So practically they couldn't break down a big chunk of wall and rebuild. Okay, so that was not one of the solutions. So what did it say? Let's make a mechitza. Make a thin mechitza. From sticks or whatever, which is quite easy. Make a thing on where the river is. So what we'll do? So where the river is, you make a thin mechitza. So now, when you make the thin mechitza, so that will be a new mechitza. And that is hookah for dira. And you're doing it when you're making that mechitza by the river. Why are you making the mechitza? Because you want the people from the Mavoi, people from the Shvil. Yeah, what is next to the river? Let's remind ourselves. Yeah, the Shvil, the road between the vineyards, goes all the way to the river. Okay, fine. So you make a mechitza there next to the river, and therefore, what's the intention of the river? Because you want the people should be able to use the courtyard and to carry from the courtyard, from the Shvil to the courtyard to the Mavoi. So therefore, you are doing that with the intention. You're doing that with the intention of creating one large residential unit, which will include the shvil, the road between the vineyards and the Mavoi and the courtyard. It's going to be one large. So therefore, it's hookah for dira. So by making the fence by the river, it's hookah for dira, and the whole thing becomes one unit. There is a little bit of a problem with this hookah for dira business, because I stressed before the whole time that, because that is the opinion of Rashi, how Rashi learns in the Sugya. I stressed before the whole time that the roads are narrower than 10 amos. So therefore, this whole entrance by the river, where the road of the vineyard road, the vineyard road meets the river, is less than 10 amos. So making a wall there, it's less than 10 amos. According to what we learned before, you need to make a break more than 10 amos and then put fencing. Because if you have that's not called the gap of 10 amos, not a proper Pesach, it's not a proper new Mechitza, etc., etc. We learned it before. You need more than 10 amos. To the reconstructed part must be more than 10 amos. That's what we learned before. Anyway, Rashi says, the Ritva over here expounds on the whole Shittas Rashi and the Sugya, and very, very nicely. And it's clearer in the Ritva, but it's basically that's in Rashi as well, that over here, even though the reconstructed fence or the newly constructed fence is not going to be 10 amos, it's a bit less than 10 amos, but it doesn't matter, because what you're doing is you're now adding the whole Shvil Shel Kromim, this whole vineyard area, the whole road of the vineyard, you're making it part of the you're making it part of the courtyard, because you want the courtyard to be used for those people. So therefore, you've really, in practice, what you've done, you've extended the courtyard. So therefore, since you've extended the courtyard by adding this another road to it, so even though the actual fencing is less than 10 amos, it doesn't matter, because you've made such an extension of the courtyard that you've added the whole road should become like part and one unit with the courtyard. So therefore, that is more effective than reconstructing a fence of over 10 amos, and therefore it's kosher. Anyway, so that was the first solution. Solution number one, or proposals number one, I should say. Proposal number one from Rabbi is make a fence by the river. So, but you can't do that, because he says there's a fence there already. You can't. Building a fence on top of a fence is not. If you have a fence, the river is a fence. When you make the river is a fence anyway. So what you're doing, you're making the fence higher. Making a fence higher, I'm sorry, that does not make it a new fencing. Once it's fenced off, an area is fenced off, making the fence higher is not going to help you to turn it into a hook of ladira, because it's fenced off already, and whatever status it is you can't change the status of just making it higher. Okay, so that's the first. Let's do it. So is now the mechutza hechanavin. Lava the mechutza akud the nara ain't oisil mechutza. You don't make a mechutza. It doesn't affect anything. Okay, so that's out. You can't make the mechutza by the river. But level the tzuras haPesach. So let's make it tzuras haPesach apuma de shvil shel kromim. So let's make a tzuras haPesach. Second proposal: make a tzuras haPesach by the shvil shel kromim, by the where the entrance, where the road from the vineyard road meets the courtyard. So if you make it tzuras haPesach over there, so now let's see. Let's examine the shvil shel kromim. The road where the vineyard road. So the vineyard road is like a movie, really. You have all the chatzeros and houses which make a fence all the way down to the river. So it's on two sides. The river is a third side. So it's like a movie, really. It's like a movie, and then so you need to have. So it's like a movie, and then when you make it tzuras haPesach, so now the tzuras haPesach is allowing you to carry in the movie. So what does the tzuras haPesach achieve? It's the tzuras haPesach, because you can't carry in the vineyard area. You cannot carry, because it's like a movie, which one end is open. You have to have a lechi or tzuras haPesach or something. So you make it tzuras haPesach. So you make it tzuras haPesach by the entrance to the vineyard road, the entrance where the courtyard meets the vineyard road, and that will be effective as to allow you to carry within the vineyard. And since it's effective for the vineyard to turn it into a proper movie which is permitted to carry, so it will also be effective for a new fence for the vineyard, even though it's less than 10 amos. So even though that I mentioned before that the road is less than 10 amos, so the tzuras haPesach obviously is going to be less than 10 amos, and so therefore it's not new fencing above 10 amos. It's it's not new fencing, but still, if it's effective to make it kosher as a mavui in itself, to make it the vineyard, so it's done some sort of fencing for the vineyard. If it achieves fencing for the vineyard, so then it is legally able to achieve. It's considered also new fencing for the courtyard as well. So therefore, the courtyard is now considered fenced off l'shem dira. What we are trying over here, we're attempting to do over here is, you see, it's this principle where I'm trying to find. If you notice, I'm always trying to find that that we have a problem. You're not making a new fencing of above 10 amas. So we're finding excuses or legitimate legal sort of reasonings why it will be effective, even though we do not have a new fencing of more than 10 amas, which normally is what you need to turn it into hook of the dira. The courtyard should be considered hook of the dira. So even less even a lesser fencing will also be sufficient. So so what's the reasoning? There's some legal reasoning why the Tzuras vessel works? Because since it's effect to make the mavui ki'ilu fenced off, to make the vineyard fenced off, therefore you should be able to carry it because the vineyard is considered fenced off from all the rest. So it's considered fenced off. So but it stands at the juncture between the vineyard and the courtyard. So it's a new fence. So it's like there is a new fencing. It is new fencing. If it's considered new fencing for purposes of the vineyard, no. So you can also have it new fencing for purposes of the courtyard, and therefore, if you make the Eruv, you'll be able to carry from the vineyard into the courtyard. Okay. So what was the solution? The solution was to make it Tzuras HaPesach. This discussion. Proposal B, proposal number 2, make it Tzuras HaPesach by the vineyard. So we can't do that. No, we can't do that. Why not? Because the camels which go through, the camels over there. So practically, it wasn't shadin. It'll break it. It's narrow enough. The road is narrow enough. There's not enough space, and you make a Tzuras HaPesach there. The camels will just going past. They'll break it. So it's not practical to do that. You can't do Tzuras HaPesach. Okay. So Elo Amar Abaya. So Abaya said, "Levet lechi apitzcha d'shvil shukramim." This is going to be the same logic. The same logic which I use for Tzuras HaPesach will just apply to the lechi. So don't make it Tzuras HaPesach. It's big, cumbersome, or whatever, and then camels will knock it off. Make a small thing, a lechi. It's not very big. It's only 10 tvachim high, and it can be as thin as anything. You're not really making it the road much narrower. It'll go. So levet lechi apischa d'shvil shekramim. Make a lechi over there. The migid the mahanin shvil shekramim, since it's effective for the shvil shekramim to make a lechi that you should be able to carry in the shvil shekramim. Mahanin am rechava. So therefore, it's considered the new fencing. It's new fencing. So it's as if you re-fence the chava in order for living there. Living there means that because the people are going to start carrying things there, and they're going to use it as it's a very useful area for them to use. So it's part of the area used by the people who are residential. Okay, so that's what Abai suggested. That was his final suggestion. Okay. Rabbi said, no, he disagreed. The alma, then if you make a lechi for the vineyard thing, so then people will start, he's worried, because people will start using this always, because basically what you have over there, you have this, it's a movam. The river is a fence. The river is a fence, but it's not noticeable as a fence. That's the problem. It's not noticeable. So people, in the eyes of people, what they see is a shvil shekramim, which is open at both ends, and you just put a lechi on one end and it's kosher. Of course, we know that you're relying because the river is on the other end, and that's why you're relying on. You're relying because the river's on the other end, and it's considered as mechitza. But people don't know that, and all they see there's fences on two sides, and then you put a lechi, and that's good enough. So they'll know every moment foolish. Every shvil shekramim, which is similar concept. The shvil shekramim, so they'll say the shvil shekramim, which is open both ends. You just put the lechi at one end, gemara. So therefore, Rabbi refused to agree to make such a header. So Rabbi said, you make a lechi by where the mavi from the street, the mavi, which is the other end, the mavi which connects to the Shusarabim, that mavi which has a Tzuras HaPesach, by the way, by entrance to the Shusarabim. So make another lechi over there, where it enters the courtyard. And the MIG use the same logic. I know it's less than 10 amas, the entrance is less than 10 amas, but still it's considered new fencing. The masa, since it helps for the city, it means for the movie, for that movie, it helps lech, because now the lech, it has both ends, it has a tourist on one end, and lech the other, therefore you're allowed to carry the movie. So it's considered a new fencing. Oh, if it's halachic, it's considered a new fencing. Oh, it's chashav enough to be considered the new fencing for the courtyard, and this is in mind that you should be able to carry that, etc. So you've made it residential. It's a new fence for the purposes of resident, and therefore for the purpose of residential use, and therefore you'll be able to carry the rechava well. So the rechava hilkoch. Therefore, tiltula b'mosa. Okay, so therefore, now what we've done is we've turned the rechava into we've turned the rechava into a residential area. Okay. Hilkoch. Therefore, tiltula b'mosa gofer shari. You're allowed to carry in the movi, that movi. Tiltula b'rechava gofer shari. To carry in the courtyard, you're also permitted, because it's now being re-fenced for the purposes of using for residential area. So therefore, you're allowed to carry in there. Now, can you carry from the movi into the rechava? So min masal rechava masal. Can you carry from the movi into the courtyard, or from the courtyard into the movi? There we have a machlekes fliga bar Rabbi Ravina. The machlekes in Rabbi Ravina. Chad also v'chad shari. One permits it and one does not permit it. Right. Why does it not permit it? It's all, you've made it. It's all fenced off, and it's all and you have a new fencing, so that it's all residential. Why can't you carry from one residential area to the other residential area? So the reason why it's permitted is quite simple. Man shari, one says it's permitted. The halek is the urine. There's nobody living there's nobody actually living in the courtyard, and therefore all you need is that the people from the mob that make this eruv and they make this eruv, and therefore they're able to carry that, because now it has a new fencing, the shem dira, but there's nobody actually living there. So therefore, there's nobody there which needs to participate in the eruv. There's no extra people there that need to participate in the eruv. So as long as the people from the Mavi have made the eruv, then that's sufficient. There's a technicality over here, whether the people from the Shvil can also join or not. Rashi says not, the Ritzu says yes. I will not get into it. Yes. Anyway, so we'll just discuss about the Mavi and the Chotzer. Because the one that says Yelapu is simple. Now, Manda Omar, Manda Osa, what's the reason of this person says you're not allowed to? I mean, you have all the people which are involved, are participating in the Erev, it's been fenced again, the Shem Dira, it's all fine. So what's the problem? Why can't you carry from one to the other? So he says, because we worry that maybe this courtyard will end up, people will start living in this courtyard, and they'll make some houses, or they'll build something there, and they will continue to carry. When without having made a new eruv. Yeah. So we worry that some people will sort of start using it as a living place, and they will actually live there, make some sort of house, and they will not participate in the general eruv, because besides building the structure of the movie with the fences, you also need to participate in Erev. They might not participate in the Erev, and they will still carry, so that's the problem. So this chashash, that's why he said it's awesome. So, right, that's